got him back. I wrangled this guy. Actually, I didn't wrangle Scott. Scott reached out to me, which is a good thing in 2025. Scott Fawcett, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm great, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. Last time I had you on here, we had the Tiger Five, um, sort of a tease for people to go and have a listen or watch for that because it's so worthwhile. Things that you've studied, there were sort of the five things Tiger did really well to do what Tiger did. You're the statistical expert, but first, share with us the journey, man. You went and you made a play for the Champions Tour. You're now 50. You don't look it, and
I
and
feel it.
it was an odyssey. And you texted me like you learned so much from this experience that was trying to qualify for the Champions Tour.
Well, it really has been interesting because I mean the whole reason I caddied for Zalatoris back in 2014 was because in the 2013 US Mid-Am I caught a root and actually did some damage to my left elbow, which is, I wound up having surgery on that back in 2021. And really from 2014, I just didn't play a whole lot of golf. I decided to use my golf time to help Zalatoris more in the summertime. And really kind of saved my body for turning 50, which I did in 2023. So last year was really the first full year that I kind of, from let's say March, tried to play again, not full time by any stretch of the imagination, but at least a time or two every week or two, which still doesn't sound like much. But um, I qualified for the US Senior Open last year, which was a lot of fun to go play in Newport. But then what you're alluding to is the Champions Tour qualifying. And it really is interesting how I sit around and talk about this stuff all day, every day. But until you get yourself out there in the heat of golf, you just don't realize how hard it is to do. And I say it all the time, like as a joke, but the discipline required to make solid optimal decisions, not let where you stand to par or where you stand in the golf tournament. Don't let those things, just yank your emotions all over the place, leading to what will be suboptimal, decisions. And again, just throwing myself out there in the middle of it. Again, did I actually, I had knee surgery 6 weeks ago. My knee was in pretty bad shape at final stage. With only 5 cards, I did not think I really had a chance of getting one of those 5 cards, but also I don't want to go out and shoot just a bunch of 75s.
Yeah,
So it really is interesting to get out and play more golf myself and really see how to apply it all.
I'll say this. Um, I'm a career golf teacher now who happens to have a microphone in front of his face. And golf instruction is my bent. I'm going to go there all the time. And I was a college coach for a long stage. And here of late or last fall in 2024, I had to do a few corporate outings, which ordinarily for me is show up, glad handle people, give a clinic, give a few lessons, then say goodbye. So a couple of them I had to go and play with guests. And one outing was in Phoenix, Arizona. And I remember now, so I like emergency hitting golf balls the week before, right? Okay. And emergencies are like this panic practice. And so we get there in the first golf course we play. I get on the first tee, dude, and it's like single file like this, and there's just cacti and bushes down either side of me. And I remember going, this is freaking hard. And look, I was a decent player back in the day. And all of a sudden, it put the whole thing into perspective for me because I've been expecting so much of all these, good golfers, these golfers I've taught. I'm like, just do this. And they're like,
Yeah.
okay. But it's a different deal. And you're explaining that now when you ratchet the pressure up and it means something. I found my mind all over the show at times. In fact, the one time on the golf course, I videoed myself going, this is not as easy as I've made it for the last 20 years, people. I'm so sorry for being like I was.
Well, that's what I joke about it all the time that I've traveled the world for the last 10 years telling people how easy golf is if you play it correctly. It's like, well, if you're going to say that when you tee it up, you better not, again, shoot a bunch of 78s.
Uh-huh.
And it is funny, like the good guys I'm friends with and Frederick Lindblom, like a bunch of social media personalities. And I don't think people realize how hard it is to not get in the comments. And when you, like, by definition, I mean, a guy like Garrett, he films 100 rounds a year.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to play bad in 25 of them. And if you just happen to watch that one, you're going to be like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
And I actually had him out for the 1 day member guest at my home course, and he didn't play very well. And I hit 18 greens and shot 65. And if you watch those two, you'd be like, well, Scott's amazing and Garrett's terrible. It's like you happen to catch me on a 5 percentile best round. You happen to catch him on a 10 percentile worst round. And that's unfortunately just the way golf works. You just shoot all over the board.
Okay, let's keep things in perspective. Folks, this is why I love him. He just dropped a little something that's probably gone right over your head, but I'm going to catch it and we're going to mine this. Um, there's a bell curve to everything. And you've just talked about the 5 percentile good day and the 10 percentile bad day. Help us understand, Scott, that golf is not as like surgical or, kind of clinical, where it's like, okay, I'm going to shoot this score all of the time. There's variation to everything, and we got to understand what our fingerprint, not in terms of shots like you've described with the rifle versus the shotgun, but our fingerprint as a golfer in terms of what our scoring range is. Make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I figure, and it's probably, I don't technically know this, but I figure it's probably a wider number the higher your scoring average is. But for people that are averaging in the 70s, you've probably got about a 10 shot range of potential scores.
Hmm.
And again, it's just like you say, it's basically a bell curve. And I do believe that like decade proper course management, it really addresses the worst 30-ish, maybe 40-ish percentile of your rounds aggressively. So if my scoring average was roughly 70 this year, I probably shoot between 65 and 75 on at least 90% of days, which is pretty accurate.
Hmm.
And what we're really trying to do is take that 73 and not turn it into a 76. Your better half of scores really won't change much, maybe a shot-ish, because you'll not make the one silly bogey by trying to attack something or even by trying to protect something too much. I mean, and what's funny is as you were saying that, I was like, at final stage of Champions Tour Q School, I literally shot 75, 72, 66, 70. So I had the full
The whole
bell
thing.
curve
Yeah.
in 4 days, but it's just, man, it's just so hard because most of us don't get to play that much golf. And so we all, every time we tee it up, you want to go play good. You don't want to, but like again, by definition, that's not going to happen, no matter how good or bad you are. And it's really, again, keeping your expectations. The first E of decade stands for expectation. It's just an
Yeah.
acronym. And that really is the main thing that I don't think 10 years ago I would have realized how important that is just managing your expectations and not, again, when you feel like you should have shot lower, which we all do every single round of golf you play, it's not because you feel like you should have made more birdies, it's you shouldn't have done the Tiger 5 stuff that you alluded to from our first, from our last podcast.
I want to do this because you have a wonderful way of being pragmatic, sort of mathematician about golf, which is hardly pragmatic. It's as
Or
mercurial.
easy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've just been talking about our recent experiences. But even despite that 10 stroke spread for the golfer, there's going to be the instance where it's the 60 for the elite golfer. Now, for the club golfer, it's something really way low. And then on the other side of that coin, the aberration where it's like for the scratch golfer who goes out and shoots 84. And then it's
Hmm.
like the world starts caving in on us mentally. But I want you to say, hey, folks, just kind of brush that out of the way. Let's be real about this thing and get back in the saddle.
I say this all the time, and I've had enough people on social media confirm it. I was the biggest lunatic in professional golf in my 20s. And I am 50 now. I have less testosterone. I'm not as stressed about money as I was when I was 25 on the Hooters tour. But I do believe that I'm as close to, air quotes, like enlightened on the golf course as you can possibly be. And that's through years now of practice with meditation, really understanding the numbers of, what are reasonable expectations. Again, on the PGA Tour, an 8 foot putt is 50-50. It's a coin flip. And so if you and I were flipping coins and it came up tails and you had guessed heads, you wouldn't punch yourself in the face and say, I'm the worst coin flipper guesser ever. You would just guess again. And that's really what I try to talk about so often is getting out of expectations, knowing exactly where you stand at par, knowing where you stand in relation to your best round ever or anything like that. It's just all that information is irrelevant at best to just absolutely brutalizing at worst. And most of us, we get into this thought loop of, oh my God, I'm 4 under. I'm never 4 under. Can I just get this to the house? It's like you still might shoot 78 that day or maybe 62. You just never know what's going to happen in golf, no matter how good you're hitting it. And anything can happen at any point. And again, it's just I just really believe that people understanding you don't have to be a lunatic, even if you are. There is an alternative, and I just don't even know that I was aware of that when I was younger. I was just like, well, my dad's a hothead on the golf course. I'm a hothead. It just is who I am. And
Mm,
I won't say I wore it like a badge of honor, but I certainly wore it like, and I'm not going to change this.
yeah.
And it's just so exhausting to constantly be mad. And one last thing on that is a guy that I talk about a lot is a guy named Sam Harris, whose meditation app Waking Up is who I use. And he's got an interesting way that he phrases it, saying, we all treat problems like anomalies. You know, at some point in the future, your car is going to break down, your air conditioner is going to break in your house. And yeah, the day that it happens, it sucks. And so it is a bit of an anomaly. But on the golf course, you know you're going to hit bad shots every single day. You know you're going to hit good shots every single day. And yet we're constantly grading and judging every shot. And so, by definition, if there's a ton of peaks and valleys in every round of golf, we're on this roller coaster all day long. And there's just no way that's optimal.
Two things come out of this. I got to write the first one down so I don't forget it. But quickly, you don't strike the you habitually strike the ball well, so this is not the case. But I think with that being said, being prepared for any anomaly, if you were in advising any viewer or listener to this to say, hey, you got something big coming up, like you had Champions Tour School qualifying, you like practice for every scenario you're likely to face. Don't just work on the weaknesses. Are you? What's your take over there?
I'm a huge proponent of getting really good at one thing. And I know this is a big
Okay.
debate constantly about block versus random practice. You'll have a lot of instructors that want you to be able to intentionally hit it out on the toe and the heel in the middle of the face. And I'm like, there's enough inherent variability in golf. We don't need to practice variability. To the layperson watching, which I believe that's where all the studies come from about this. You know, it's like, man, they're doing the same thing every time. It's like, it's not even close. Otherwise, the ball would be doing the same thing every time. And so
Mhm.
I'm a big proponent in focusing in on those Tiger Five mistakes as we prepare for a golf
Sure.
tournament. So, what are they? First of all, bogeys on par fives.
Yeah.
We're going to do that by getting the ball in play off the tee. And when we're out of play off the tee, just getting it back in position.
Okay.
So I don't need a fancy shot to get back in position. I just need to have the mental discipline to, you know what, I'm in the trees here. I get it. It's a par five, but I can only advance it to 120 in taking that. We're going to try to avoid three putts for the most part. And we're going to do that by mastering our speed control from 20 to 40 feet.
Yeah.
That's and honestly, not trying to make a single putt in that distance. I mean, yes, you're going to accidentally make some putts, but the make rate from 20 feet on tour is only 15%. I mean, most amateurs, it's going to be 5 to 10%. What we really want to do is master getting down in two from 20 to 40 feet.
Hmm.
If you're hitting many shots outside of 40 feet, you shouldn't have more than two or three around, most likely. And then beyond that, Tiger had no blown easy saves, which for a decade we turned into two chips. But personally, I haven't like really practiced flop shots or anything crazy in years because like I definitely don't have enough time to master them. And so if I don't have enough time to master it to where I really want to bring it, like if I get myself in a spot where I need to hit a flop shot, it's probably more of an issue with the approach shot than I need to really try to get this one up and down. Let's just don't make double from these weird
Yeah.
spots.
Great
And
job.
again, to Tiger, no blown easy saves, really owning some very basic carry chip shot carry shots of 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15 yards. And that's all I practice now when I practice my chipping is just literally I put tees out on the ground at 2 yard intervals from 5 to 15 yards. And then I'm just trying to carry it those distances. And then when I get out on the course, and this is where it's hard because I'm a 51-year-old, very experienced player. I can kind of see what needs to happen. And so I can pick the landing spot fairly well. And now I'm just trying to hit my stock carry number to that spot. And then finally is just the idea of eliminating penalty shots off the tee.
Hmm.
And we're going to do that by hitting just one shot shape and one shot shape only off the tee. And I literally mean that. The biggest component of great driving is the ball being shaped the direction you intended. And
Yes.
so you can just go down the list of the best drivers on the PGA Tour, and every single one of them, not named Rory, works the ball one direction. It's just such a difficult club because we can't change ball position. It's such a difficult club to move your path 6 degrees from out to in, like from three left to three right. If I can't move ball position, so I can move ball position back if I'm a fader with irons, and that's going to artificially move my path right. So shaping your irons isn't quite as difficult, but with driver, you just can't do it. And so owning a shape off the tee is going to be, you've got a lot of room to work with as long as the ball shapes the direction you intended. And if you can do those things, again, master basic chip shots, master 20 to 40 foot lag putts, own a shape off the tee, that's half the battle. And when you say like I'm a good ball striker, those are the three things I do really well.
Okay.
And I played to a +5 this year. I mean, again, it's funny because I don't play that much golf. I qualified for a senior open. I missed getting Champions Tour status by 3 shots. I'm going to consider that really good, especially considering I was on a knee that needed knee surgery the following month. And
Mhm.
and again, I own those three concepts.
Sensational. Back to the other question I wanted to ask, and this was more to the scoring and kind of maybe the global look at the thing, because Justin Leonard was on the show and he talked about the urgency of having the scorecard in your back pocket, and
Great
how
way of phrasing
he
it.
sort of rails against that with his kid who's now turning into a good player. Um, I'm a recovering college golf coach, and I had a really talented kid who came to me, and he was a master at turning 73 into 77 kind of thing. And then being
Hmm.
in contention, he'd blow it. And so I looked at him and I said to him at the beginning of the season, I'm like, right now, your stroke average is 73. All I want you to do is to try and clip a tenth of a stroke off that in every tournament. That's all.
Hmm.
Well, so he changed his outlook then. It didn't become so like disastrous if he'd make a mistake because he stayed true to this. It took discipline, but at the end of the season, he honestly got his stroke average down into the low 70s, 71 something. Was an All America, won twice.
Nice.
Now we had the luxury of taking that long range look and not being sort of reacting to events like whack-a-mole kind of deal. You being the mathematician you are, I'm sure you would counsel just about all and sundry watching you and listening to you to kind of adopt the same approach, right?
100%. I mean, again, like the Justin Leonard idea of the scorecard in your back pocket, we just all get so fixated on score.
Yeah.
It's honestly the reason why for the Decade app I have not optimized the data entry for on the course. I want you taking some notes and stuff as you play, length of putts and whatever, but I don't want you on your phone and tracking your score and knowing where you stand. It is a skill to not know where you stand at par. And circling back to that 65 I shot with Garrett from Good Good, when we finished, he's like, "What'd you shoot today?" I was like, "I don't know. I honestly didn't. Obviously, it's low, but I don't know if it was 6, 7, or 8 under par. I know it's in that range."
Mm-hmm.
And to that kid, I think one thing you did brilliantly there was if we get a tenth of a stroke better, I wouldn't even say in every tournament, but just like every month, or just as a general guide more than anything, I'm not trying to get you 2 shots better by next, if this is September, by May, I'm trying to get you one. And that's what I think a lot of, especially mini tour guys, do wrong is they feel like they need to be ready to play on the tour by the end of this year. And it's like you probably have 3 years of work to do, especially most guys graduating from college, not in that top 10 on PGA Tour University. You've
Mm-hmm.
got some work to do. And
Yeah.
that might take a year, 2 or 3 years. Even if we gave you a card, you're not ready for it. And you see that a lot where guys just happen to career at Q school and then miss 20 out of 23 cuts. You weren't ready for that. And I'm a huge process guy, process goal over outcome goal. The
Mm-hmm.
outcome is to win. The outcome goal is to win or to lower our scoring average or whatever. That's obvious. But what's the process that we do to do that, to have those results? And that's again, I've really liked that way more.
I think it's applicable to anyone at any station of the game. A quick personal anecdote before we change gears. You're like the wily old pro. I love to spend time around those guys. Maybe I'm old now because I'm 54. But Eric Eshelman, I've got high respect for because he's taken a number of young golfers and turned them into PGA Tour, LPGA winners. And I took my daughter over to see him. And he looked at her and he goes, "Man, you're super talented. You got a high ceiling." He goes, "But she's going off to college now soon." He goes, "I don't want you to play your best golf in your freshman year." He goes, "Now in your senior year is when you should be playing your best golf over there." And in a strange way, it almost loosened the shackles on her as if to say, "Oh, shucks, I'm going from high school. I'm going to this program. Everyone's watching me, and then it just heightens everything in your head. And then all of a sudden, one shot becomes like the beginning and an end of everything."
100%. And then that's just prime for a downward spiral. I mean, again, back to what Sam Harris talks about, we treat all problems like anomalies. If you no bad stuff is going to happen every single day, then when it happens, you can't be surprised. Whereas most of us treat like, oh my God, I just made a bogey on a par five. What, this sucks. It's like, again, if we weren't so focused on outcome and score, that would just be water off our back. But it's focusing on that too much. And just I feel like I'm answering your question maybe in an indirect way, but circling back to the Tiger five mistakes, Tiger was trying to have one and a half of those per round in order to win on the PGA Tour. I just played to a +5 at Champions Tour Q School. Again, finished eighth at first stage, missed getting status by 3 at second stage, 71 scoring average. Again, shot under par for both 72 holes. I'm just trying to illustrate
Yeah.
this was good golf.
Mhm.
And I had 20 Tiger five mistakes in 8 rounds. So 2.5 times per round, I bogeyed a par five, made a double, had a three putt, made a bogey inside 150, or had a two chip. 2.5 times around, I did one of those five things and
Yeah.
still had a 71 scoring average.
Mhm.
And so when those things happen, it's just like, okay, there's one. Now, if I were to get to like four and it's number 12, I'd be like, what's going on here, dude? Like, are you making emotional decisions? Are you just playing bad golf? And sometimes it's just not my day. I don't know what it is. I'm just not feeling good, not hitting it good, getting the worst kicks possible on every shot. Sometimes it's not your day. Let's don't turn that round into again, I shot 75 in the first round at final stage. I made an eight on the fourth hole of the tournament from basically greenside on a par five and two, but I was in the desert. And I was in such a bad spot for me, a guy from Dallas who hasn't hit a shot out of the desert in God knows how many years. And I knew it. And I definitely tried a shot that was too aggressive given my skill set because I was like, I was just 260 in the fairway on a par five. I got to get a better look at birdie. I mean, this isn't exactly what I was thinking. I know that's dumb,
Mhm.
but the shot I was on a little bit of an uphill on a tight desert lie. There was no chance I was going to hit this shot solid with a lob wedge. It'd be like trying to pick a lob wedge out of an uphill lie in a fairway bunker. I should have taken something more flat faced, bumped and run it onto the green. Instead, I came up short, plugged in a bunker, then went long in the desert, wound up walking off with an eight. And the problem in life is you never know the counterfactual of anything. If I had chosen the other club and walked off with a six, I'd have thought, dang it, I should have gone with the other club. I had no idea an eight was lurking around the corner if by going with the other club. And that's why we've just got to get out of all this micromanaging of just overthinking outcomes where it's just like you just don't know, you can't undo it, and so move on.
Mhm. Love it. You're the statistical guy. You and I were chatting before we went live just about strokes gain data because look, it's helpful. It's the best way to measure oneself against the field. But I run the risk now of, antagonizing a bunch of the folks who worship at the altar of strokes gained. But let's bring some reality to this because, like I said earlier, golf isn't as cut and dried as what I think people are trying to make it statistically.
It's not, and I heard a great quote from Elon Musk, thankfully, recently, and it's not about Doge or anything, but it's about if in programming or in optimizing processes, if you're not adding back somewhere along the way, you haven't deleted enough while you're optimizing. You should over delete and be like, oh, you know what? Actually, we need that. I
Yeah.
feel like we've done the opposite of that with statistics. So total putts, total driving, even fairway hits are all pretty useless statistics. And so now Mark Brody and the PGA Tour created strokes gained, and it is amazing. On the PGA Tour, it works really well because they've got these daily adjustments. There's still some flaws ish with it, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. But when we're now taking this, and again, I'm definitely talking about the Decade app, any stats app, Upgame, Clipped, all of them, Arcos, we all use these generic benchmarks because we don't know if the hole was super tight like Harbor Town or if it was wide open-ish like Augusta or Trinity Forest. And so, as an extreme example, on the PGA Tour, a 400-yard hole plays with a 3.99 scoring average. So most of the stats apps are going to treat any 400-yard hole as basically a four scoring average. Well, if the fairway's only 1 yard wide and there's OB on both sides, the hole's going to have a billion scoring average, but the stats apps are still going to treat it like a four.
Yeah.
And it's just, it is what it is. There's really nothing you can do about it. The difficulties of hole locations located, further or from the edge of the green or not. Is it sawgrass and penalty hazards everywhere? Again, is it Trinity Forest and wide open? We don't have these characteristics built into the strokes gain models. And so with strokes gained approach and driving, it really falls away very quickly. And it basically becomes irrelevant very quickly. And I said this all, I didn't even include those in the decade at for the first 3 years. Finally, the Pac-12 coaches essentially insisted on it being in there, so I included it. But I always I had asterisk next to it. I listed it as not comparative in our comparative analysis features. And finally, after playing more myself over the last year and a half, I'm like, you know what? This really is kind of silly. The strokes gained driving data basically has me driving the golf ball better than Keith Mitchell, which I can assure you is not the case. But that's just the way the inherent flaws with it. And that's why with Decade, we're really starting to focus on those Tiger 5 mistakes way more. Trying to simplify the data collection way more because back to the Elon Musk analogy, we've gone from some stuff that's not useful to we've got this shiny new gadget in strokes gained, and we've just applied it to everything for 10 years. And it's like, there's some stuff we need to delete out of that because it's just not quite working the way that we thought it is. If you circle back to the idea, the point of statistics is to tell you what you need to work on. There is actually no other point. We've
Yeah.
all grown accustomed, though, to having this strokes gained driving number at the end of the round. And I'll even admit, like at final stage, I sat over there at the DraftKings right there by TBC Scottsdale, entered in my stats, and I was like, I wanted to see this strokes gain number just because I drove it well, and I basically wanted an ego stroke of, hey, you were +2 today. But it's like if that number's not right, then what's the point? And so I do think we've got to rewire our brains a little bit here to what's actually useful in golf statistics.
I think so. And I'll say this as an announcer, and it grinds my gears when you see some guy over a shot. Now, well, look, I'm the on course guy, I'm not the tower guy, but the tower guy will drop some streak. Well, for the year, his strokes gain positive on approach shots, but he's really sort of sucking today. And then I want to go, well, the guy's driven it in a couple divots, and he's played out of the rough a few times, and the wind's swirling all over the show. There's a context to it that I think is also kind of lost. And so I appreciate you saying that really it's more an advisor to what we need to go and work on, and not like some sort of something we're going to hang our hat on kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, strokes gain putting works fairly well. I mean, again, greens are softer and speed, but for the most part, most people putt on fairly consistent greens. So if you are a person who plays lower tiered munis, you probably play on kind of bumpier, slower greens. If you're a tournament player, you probably play on greens rolling 10-ish. And like, so your number, you can watch trends in it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like it's really comparable. But A, it's a self-reported statistic, and every inch from 3 to 8 feet is 1% in your make rate. Like that's huge. That I'm just saying, if I said this is a 5 footer, and it was actually 5.5 feet, that's 6 hundredths of a stroke that my strokes gain number is going to be off on that one stroke. And if we make that kind of mistake 10 times, it adds up. The whole point of strokes gain is we need to start thinking in fractions of shots. And once you start doing that, you realize, oh my God, there's some problems here. And again, to the PGA Tour, that same 400-yard hole that should be 3.99, if someday it played at 3.8 because it was calm and hot and the greens were soft and whatever, the shot link adjusts for that. So again, I really think that people understanding what Mark Brody and the PGA Tour created, it is really good, but there is nuance within it, especially like when you talk about around the green. The year, I can't think of who it was now off the top of my head. Someone led strokes gained around the green maybe 8 or 10 years ago. Well, they were also dead last in greens in regulation. So yeah, they chip it well, but they had the most attempts of anyone. And so when a category is cumulative in nature,
Uh-huh.
it's a bit of a problem. It's why strokes gained approach seems so much more important than even strokes gained driving sometimes. Well, you usually have 14, I mean, excuse me, 18 to even 20 or 21 approach numbers per day, depending on if the par fives are reachable. And like last week, there was only 13 tee shots. There were five par threes, I guess, because the guy was 5 of 13 in the round we were discussing where he was negative strokes gained before he got started. So there's only 13 attempts to mass a number. And, for the week off the tee, he gained 4.9, and on approach, he gained 0.585. So, I mean, he per shot was gaining a ton off the tee. Yes, he had that one round that was really bad. Again, I'm going to dig into that one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just the cumulative nature of some of these categories is a problem.
The guy that Scott is talking about, folks, we were chatting about the 2025 Mexico Open, and Aldrich pot hitter on the one day when he shot 60, and he was bludgeoning balls off the tee, two north of 350, seven drives over 320 or something, and he lost zero point 0.8 of a stroke off a tee because of a tee ball that was basically in the water. Um, Stepping away from that, with strokes gained, like you're either above or below, right? So, and I think I might have heard you before, or no, maybe it was Terry Rolls where he said, I hate averages in golf instruction. He goes, because every great player has a separator. So if you're looking at someone that says, well, you're on this side of the average with whatever golf swing move, you're comparing someone to the middle. You're comparing someone to average. Strokes gain takes the average of the field, and you're like, you positive or negative to that. Correct? I'm
Correct.
correct. Okay. So what I'm looking for here,
What you're trying to say is a zero strokes gain player is dead on tour average in that category.
yeah, he's kind of middle of the road. Okay.
Yep.
So what I'm saying now, or I want to say this to you, the winners have like one that they've really separated themselves in, or they're significantly better in a couple of segments. Um, I love your illustration there, because most folks like, well, I was, point one off the tee and I was point whatever. You basically, unless you did something spectacular, finishing in the middle of the field. So talk about separators and what you've learned from your time coaching and playing players with it.
Well, you just get so much variance also on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis. If an 8 foot putt is 50-50, it's not like you go make, miss, make, miss, make, miss, make, miss, make, miss. You go
Yeah.
make, miss, miss, make, miss, 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 make, miss, make, miss. I do believe that great golf is just waiting out those runs. I don't think that you sometimes, especially from 15 to 25 feet, the variance of making a couple in a tournament is just so huge. I had a tour player that I was working with a few years ago, and we'd been working on some putting ideas with speed control. And he goes out for his first event since we'd been talking for 2 weeks and he'd been working on these speed drills, and he was like -3. And I was just like, I was watching. Well, on his approach shot, he hit like 17 greens, and he hit basically everything between 15 and 25 feet. And
Yeah.
so it's easy to just get dinged point two, point two, point two. And what I was going to say when he called after the round was, hey, dude, that might not, I know the number's terrible, but that might not have been as bad as it seems. Was the ball all over it,
Uh-huh.
all over the hole? And he called me, and he, before he even said a word, he's like, dude, I promise you that was not as bad as it seems. And I'm like, good. I was going to try to say the same thing because, yeah, I mean, looking at Pot Geither, was that close?
That's
Maybe
close. You close. Good for an
he
American.
was he was first in strokes gained putting, gaining 9.1. He was third in strokes gained off the tee, gaining 4.9. So in those two categories, he was up 14 shots. And then around the green, he gained 0.585, excuse me, lost 0.581, and approached the green, he gained 0.585. So those were basically a dead wash. And one of the things I say all the time is your winner on the PGA Tour is typically between 12 and 14 shots clear of the field average. And here he is essentially just exactly on 14.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that's hard about golf is when your brother won the Masters, he was 14 shots clear of the field average.
Yeah.
And what's funny to me is the announcers all talk about, well, he go for any par fives that week. I'm like, well, nobody did. It was 40 degrees and miserable outside. He would not have won the Masters if the score was 20 under, like when DJ won.
Yeah.
That's important to understand the context of how to look into these things. I mean, that one does, it does drive me crazy when the announcers say that all the time. You can win the Masters without going for par fives. And like, well, you better have a very specific set of weather circumstances for
Mm-hmm.
that to happen. And again, I think that's the nuance that's very hard to track.
Well, I think it kind of gets right back to where the thrust of this conversation has sort of found itself, which is why I love getting together with you, because we start one place and finish in another, and it's been educational and fun along the way. Is that golf is unpredictable, but if you do five things properly, you are stacking the odds in your favor, basically. And I love what you take. I actually want to make a social media clip out of that. And you go, great golf is just waiting out the runs. because I've always said to someone, I said to my daughter all the time, I'm like, it's a cycle. There's good golf, indifferent golf, bad golf, indifferent golf, good golf. And as long as you don't panic when you're in one of the bottom two, it's going to find its way around the cycle there if you just keep doing the right thing.
And also, as long as when you're playing that good golf, you don't start getting a little ahead of yourself and thinking you're better than you are and start trying too much. I feel like I feel like the loop you just explained right there was Jordan Spieth the first 4 years of his career. I don't follow it that closely, but I know he was in these loops where it'd be great and then not good. And I found a number of quotes from that guy saying, when I look back, I started trying to work it both ways off the tee too much. I started trying to do too many things. I got to where I was playing good, and then you get to struggling again. It's right back to square one. I do believe you are just waiting out these little runs of variance. It's the thing that's hard about golf is even in tennis, I'm playing one person at a time. I don't know how many people are start a tennis tournament. It's probably somewhere around 100 and
Yeah.
whatever the 28 or whatever the number would be. But I only have to play you. If even in the first round, if I'm Federer, I don't know who great tennis players are anymore, but if I'm Federer and I had to play all 125 other players, someone probably played better than me on that day. It's
Yes.
why winning golf tournaments is so hard. I mean, and this is where it's so interesting is even a 3% win rate is one in every 33 starts, a year and a half tops. That's a hell of a win rate. That's basically the same thing as picking the ace of spades out of a deck of cards. I mean, it just doesn't, we are so
I've never
jaded
heard
by,
that. Say that again. I've never heard that, but you've just freaking, it's like the first time I ever heard someone talk about degrees in swing past, and they're like, 1 degree is like 1 second on your wristwatch. I'm like, yeah, that's
yeah.
tiny. And he goes, exactly. Say it again. One
So, I mean, if you think
thirty-three.
about if you just think to just make the math explicit, a 2% win rate would be one in every 50 starts. Guys play about 25 events a year. So a 2% win rate would literally be winning a tournament every other year. Like, that's not the most amazing career ever, but 5 wins in a 10-year career, pretty damn good. I mean, Hunter Mahan, we all look back, this guy had a great career. I think he had 5 or 6 wins.
Uh-huh.
Ryan Palmer's been out on tour for 25 years. I think he's got 6 or 7 wins. I
Mhm.
mean, it's hard to win on tour. And so, again, the math is very clear. If you win once every other year, your odds of winning any given week are the exact same. If I gave you a deck of cards and said, pick out the ace of spades, if I told you to do that once a week, every other week, you would do it once theoretically in 2 years. I also do believe that when you get guys that come out like Spieth did, or even Scotty last year was a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think they just ran hot for a year. So Scotty took someone else's expectation, odds away just because he happened to run hot. You'll get players, and I don't want to name any by name. I almost did, but you'll get guys that don't. Well, I mean, Patrick Rogers is probably a pretty good example.
Uh-huh.
He hasn't won, and I think the number's a pretty big amount of starts at this point. At this point, he's gonna win, but he's probably just too in his head at this point about getting it across the finish line as opposed to this other player that I was thinking of. He didn't win for like 150 starts, but around 90 starts, he started putting terrible. And I do believe he started trying to force too many things, trying to get that win. And it's just, you just have to set the deck of cards up and you just have to let the odds and expectation play out. It, it's a poker idea of pot equity, meaning if you and I both get all of our money all in and we've got two cards to come and there's a 60% chance that I win, I have 60% pot equity. So if you have a 2 or a 3% win rate on tour, there's nothing you can do to raise that percentage. Otherwise, you would be a 4 or 5% win rate person, like kind of by definition. The only thing you can do is give away some of your equity, but there's nothing you can do to take someone else's. Now they can give it to you, which again, a lot of these guys who haven't won in 100 or 200 starts are likely doing. But there's just no, you just have to play good golf, get out of outcome. Unfortunately, we have to play all 144 guys at once, which just makes it really difficult to win.
You say that about waiting out and letting the other guy make the mistakes. I'm hearing Jack Nicklaus in the back of my head saying, in major championships, I just kind of tried not to make mistakes and I let other people make the mistakes. And more often than not, I came out on the top of the pile.
Oh, it's true. I mean, if you get yourself in that position, and let's say now he really is heads up with somebody, and let's even say, I mean, what's funny is people think that like Jack Nicklaus would have like an 80% edge over someone else. In golf, it's really close. I mean, obviously, Tiger has a huge edge over other people. Scotty did last year. But for the most part, if, and again, I don't gamble or anything at all because of the PGA Tour's ethics clauses, but if you had a 55-45 edge over someone on tour, that would be a pretty monumental edge. And so now, if we really are heads up with 6 holes to go and tied, it's still pretty much 55-45. I can't I can't force playing good. I can't force putts to go in, but you can try to do that and you can maybe give me 10 or 15% of your equity in this event. And that I'd never really thought of it that way either until you pointed it out. That's basically what Nicholas and Tiger and those guys are saying is I just still try to play my game and hopefully you're going to give me a little bit of your equity. And when we add that up over 10 majors, I get another two. I mean, that's literally how the math would work. If you gave me 10% of your equity, once we've done this 10 times, I've got an extra two majors.
Okay. So wrap us
Actually,
with
be an extra one
uh,
major. That was terrible math. If we did
uh,
it 20 times, Jesus, sorry about that.
no, well, look, I'm not the mathematician. You sound like Pythagoras, according as far as I'm concerned right now.
If you
So,
say anything mathematically really confidently, it sounds good.
no, no kidding. It's like my accent adds like 10 IQ points. Um,
Exactly.
all right. Well, let's put a bow on this. You told us about what you've been doing, how you went about your game, the lessons you learned. We went into statistics, you turned into math, and we've come upon this place to say, look, just do your thing, let the rest take care of itself. So get us back, share again, summarize the Tiger Five, because that's kind of how Tiger did it.
Well, so it's interesting because Lance Bennett, who's the guy that's actually caddying for Tiger now, I assume he still is. I really don't even know, but that's who took over after LaCava a year or two
Yeah.
ago. He's actually my old roommate from back whenever I was playing professionally in my 20s. And he told me this. We met for lunch 8 or 9 years ago. And as I created Decade 2013 and 14, caddy for Zalatoris 2014, taught it to DeChambeau in 2015. And then he and I met because he was caddying for Kuchar at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And as we went through all this, he's like, man, this really reminds me a lot of Tiger and these 5 things that he tracked. And I was like, really, what is it? And he said, how many bogeys on par fives, how many doubles, how many three putts, how many bogeys with 9 iron or less is technically what Tiger tracked. And in order to quantify the data from ShotLink, I turned that into bogeys inside 150.
Okay.
And again, blown easy saves, which is subjective to Tiger's opinion. There's no way we could quantify that. So we turned that into 2 chips for the
Mm-hmm.
Decade app. And it's funny because Smiley kind of goes viral with it every once in a while when he says, some player was telling me about this years ago. And I'm like, no, actually, it was me. And we were on the course at TPC San Antonio, and I was
Uh-huh.
going through all of it with you. And what's really interesting about it is the other guy we were playing with that week was Xander in his rookie year. And Xander was paying more attention, with all due respect to Smiley, Xander was paying more attention to what I was talking about than Smiley was. And again, it's just interesting when you can just see guys clean up these little mistakes. That's Scotty with Ted on the bag. I worked with Ted for 5 years while he was with Bubba. And I really thought from getting into some of Scotty's shot link stuff, I'm like, dude, I think these Tiger Five mistakes, I think Scotty just really doesn't quite understand how to play the game correctly at the tour level. I think you guys are gonna be a match made in heaven. I mean, literally, actually, since they are both so religious, it is a match made in heaven. Um, Focusing in on those Tiger Five mistakes is what you really want to be doing. And now we're talking about to like, let's say your players that are really trying to get good. What I really think a utopian way to improve at golf is play your round of golf, have yourself a drink, decompress. Don't do it right after the round, but that night, do a 10-minute meditation. I really believe that learning to recognize ruminating thought patterns is critical to golf. So do a 5 to 10 minute meditation, get yourself in a good state, and then sit down and go through your Tiger Five mistakes. And probably 80% of the time it's going to just be, that was bad golf. But if you're really objective and peel back the layers of the onion and look at, is there anything I could have done differently here in real time to have avoided that mistake or at least mitigated it some?
Yeah.
And again, it won't be on all of them, but there's going to be quite a few. Again, so looking back at my Champions Tour qualifying, I had two three putts, and I had Max Grazerman, who's a guy I've worked with since he was in college, has got a way that he tracks the putt like in his rehearsal at the exact speed. Like we all know to kind of like track the line, but he
Mm-hmm.
told me he actually tracks it at the pace he wants it to be rolling at also. My speed control was terrible all last year. And so I was like, dude, you have any tips? And he tells me that. And I putted really good. Well, the two three putts that I had were both from 18 feet. and they were both on putts that I didn't exactly do that on.
Yeah.
And so in post analysis, I was like, man, I really got to focus in on that. I made another triple bogey from 137 in the middle of the fairway where I definitely was playing a little bit more aggressively to this front left pin than I should have. I was being a little bit impatient in my second round, and I pulled it and it landed on the lip of a bunker and shot all the way across the bunker on the downslope. If I'd played more committed to my correct target, that ball would have actually landed about 3 or 4 feet into the fringe and probably actually kicked down pretty darn close to the flag. Instead, I was in this just absolutely terrible spot and made triple. And so it's really the post analysis. I do believe that's what a guy like Tiger was so great at. And that's how he came up with these Tiger 5 mistakes that he's trying to avoid. He's like, you know what? After every round of golf, I'm right down. I feel like I should have shot lower. Why? Write those things down. And then over however many months, really go back in and analyze that data, those ideas, and say, where's the consistent themes and what could I do differently?
Yeah.
Tiger from the late 90s averaged 2.3 bogeys per round inside of 150. He hired Steve Williams in February of 99, and in the middle of the 99 season, those bogeys inside 150 basically shut off immediately. So he went from actually making 2.3 per round in the late 90s to 1.3 per round in 2000 through 2009. I mean, he literally basically all of his improvement was just by not making bogey inside 150.
That's huge. I'll tell you this from my experience on the course, calling them Ted and Scotty. If Scotty, lion's share of the time, will hit the ball on the safe side of the flag. You very rarely ever see him short-sighted. When he's in trouble, he'll always miss the ball in the smart spot, and he talks about that. And there's more often than not, I've heard Ted Greenside say to him when he's over a difficult shot, he'll be like, "Hey, just let your putter be the superstar," or
We're going to need one good shot here. Let's make it be the putt.
yeah, yeah.
And
Let's
again,
not waste.
well, let's pretend a pin is 4 yards on the green and he's like 7, 8, 9, 10 yards off the green short sided.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we could want to hit a flop shot, land it in the fringe, trickle down to a foot. But if you actually are trying to land it, let's even say 4 yards on the green. By definition, about half the time you'll land it short of that. If once you're good at centering your shot pattern over your target, so your misses actually, unfortunately, in golf wind up becoming your great shots. So
Yeah.
when you hit that top groove 60 that you were trying to land 4 yards on the green, it lands in the fringe and trickles down to foot, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, what a shot!" It's like there's no chance that's what he was exactly trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just literally no chance that is exactly what he's trying to do. Otherwise, he would miss the green on chip shots way more often than he does. And just really understanding that that's what's going on. If there's any one thing I wish announcers would stop doing, it's acting like wherever the ball finished is where they were trying to hit it. And the perfect example of that is last year in Memphis when Hideki pulled that. I think he hit it in the water off the tee. It was either a playoff or the 72nd hole. Pulled it in the water, took his drop, and then hit that left of the flag. It's like, what a shot! Like, there's
Yeah.
no chance that's where he was aiming.
Just,
And
just,
really
just
educating the.
for the record, that wasn't our announce crew. Just got to put that out there. Okay.
It wasn't perfect. Well, I mean, again, like Tiger, and I haven't updated it in forever, but on 17 at Sawgrass, there was one year he hit it over there right and stuffed it and made birdie or whatever. And the announcer was just like acting like, what an incredible shot. Well, if you actually went and looked at the 10 final rounds at Sawgrass he had played at that time, he also hit it in the water 3 times. So if you're going to act like he hit it there on purpose, then you also have to assume he hit it in the water on purpose. You can't just take the good and not take the bad. And
Oh,
just realizing, like you said earlier, one of the things I do believe that I've brought to the game is this idea of we have a shotgun blast and not a sniper's rifle. Really understanding that what course management is managing those shotgun blasts around the course. Um, it would be like if you had a shotgun and you knew 50 pellets were going to come out, but only one of them was going to, and you didn't know which one. And now you have to manage your target selection. Like, well, that changes the tune of everything. It's really why golf and poker are such great analogies for each other. The deck of cards acts in poker like a shot pattern does in golf. You don't know which. I know which card I want to come out. I know which shot I want to come out, but I don't know exactly which one is going to. So I have to plan for some certain percentage of all of the cards, of all of the shots, and manage that around the golf course.
Loved it. My time spent with you is always fulfilling and entertaining and thought-provoking, and everyone who listens and watches feel that way too. Thanks so much, Scott, for joining. Please share with the folks
Always.
where they can find you.
Yeah, decade.golf. We've got some great stuff coming up this year. We're gonna have a certified and certified plus program to really help people start getting some, as funny as it sounds, online playing lessons.
Mhm.
We're gonna have a bunch of mini tour and Corn Ferry Tour type players hosting these online playing lessons, which removing the emotion from outcome, using satellites and using your data that you've entered into the Decade app. I really think it's going to be a great way for people to start learning how to play. I'm hoping after this knee surgery that I had last month to play a little bit better golf myself, and really excited. So just decade.golf and decade_golf on Instagram. Luckily, Twitter is gone from my life and it's been much better since.
There are many times I wanted to message you and say, "Dude, just don't bite. Just
Don't
let
do it.
it go by you."
And it wouldn't have mattered if you knew how many people did or text or anything. Let that go. Like, can't do it.
All right, bro.
Finally, the most mature thing I've done is realize how immature I am in my life.
Well, that said, you're doing God's work. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for everything.
Thank you.